Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is like one of my favorite times of the year, and it's one of my favorite times of the year because as a fifth grader, we got some people coming in late, we'll just wait just a moment, but as a fifth grader, you get to start something new. You saw it being a nice video version of it, but you get to start out and join the family. Fifth grade is when it happens. We have band students, we have orchestra students. We're all one big family, and we're hoping that you recognize that this isn't just a cool thing to do in fifth grade, but that it continues on into sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade. And we have kids, when I was at the Michigan football game last weekend, there were kids that were sitting right where you're at a few years ago, and now they're marching in the Michigan marching band. There are people who are playing professionally in the Detroit Symphony Orchestra that once upon a time were sitting right here, and they started learning how to play violin. It all starts tonight. In the next couple of weeks, you get to be a part of this awesome thing. My name's Joe Havrilla. I'm the band director over at Bolin Park Middle School, but I'm also the instrumental music coordinator. And so it's my pleasure to be the person to say, welcome to the family. And I hope to see many of you continuing on, not only through fifth grade, but on through middle school and being a part of that Troy High Marching Band or the orchestra from Athens when they're heading down to play in Florida at Disney World. You can be a part of that all those years. So I hope that you can get some of that same excitement that I have, because it's about to start. Welcome to the family. Behind me are three of our four fifth grade instrumental music teachers. One of them is not here tonight, Mr. Tiganelli, but you'll see him around a lot. So I'm going to introduce them. As you can see, we have Mrs. Millette. And although you may not recognize that name, the person is still there. She was Miss Sorensen last year, but now she's Mrs. Millette. So we welcome her back. We also have Mrs. Van Eisinga. And we have Mr. Weiss. So they're the ones that are really running the show. They'll be the ones you work you'll be working with personally. But we also have here tonight some teachers from all of our different buildings. So if we could get the Bolin Park and Baker and Smith and Larson and Troy High and Athens teachers that are in here. Can you wave from wherever you're at so we can see where you're at? They're all around us. They've been helping us out. Yes. When everything's over, because we know that your time is valuable, we aren't going to have a question and answer session where we all have to sit and wait, but we're going to stick around, and we're going to have not only the fifth grade teachers, but the middle school and high school teachers there to answer any questions that you have. So we'll have some areas they'll tell you about afterward regarding that. But we thank all of them for coming tonight, but I'm going to stop talking and let this begin properly with our fifth grade teachers. So Mrs. Van Eysingen, are you first here? Actually, Mr. Weiss, so here you go. Let's hear it for Mr. Weiss.
Thank you very much. So we're going to start by showing you guys the instruments that your fifth graders are choosing from right now. Some of them may have already made a decision. Some of them it's going to be coming up probably this week. So in fifth grade, starting in fifth grade and really all the way through high school, we have two types of instrumental ensembles in Troy, orchestra and band. I'm going to start with showing you the options for orchestra, which are the string family of instruments. And we have violin, viola, cello, and double bass, also known as contrabass, string bass, doesn't matter what you call it. So we have some volunteer students who will show us how each instrument basically sounds. We're going to start with the violin, the smallest member of the string family, the highest pitched. We have our violin musician here. You can come right out. The next member of the string family looks very similar. It is also played on the shoulder, but the viola has a lower, deeper sound. Next, we have a larger string instrument. There are two string instruments played on the shoulder that you just saw, and there are two that rest on the floor. This is the cello next. any fifth graders in attendance, if I played a little bit of that song for you a couple weeks ago and it didn't sound so good, now you know what it's supposed to really be like. Okay, and our final member of the string family is the bass. And I should mention a couple things about the bass. First, all the string instruments come in smaller sizes for smaller people. So if you can imagine smaller violin, smaller viola, smaller cello, and smaller bass, that would be what you would play in fifth grade. And also the bass is large enough that we do not require students to bring it to school. Keep it at home. We'll take care of having one at the school for you if you are choosing to play bass in fifth grade.
Those four instruments are members of the orchestra. We're now moving on to band, and in band we have two classes. I'm going to start with our woodwind class. First, we will start with the flute. Flute is the highest sounding instrument in fifth grade band and the highest woodwind. Next, we have the clarinet. Clarinet is also a woodwind instrument, and something to know about the clarinet is it uses a reed to produce sound. So if you do decide to be a clarinet player, you will be in charge of purchasing a supply of reeds throughout the school year. And next is the alto saxophone. This is the last instrument in woodwind class, and just like the clarinet, the saxophone does use a reed. And I want to point out that in fifth grade, we use the alto saxophone. There are other kinds of saxophones, but in fifth grade, we just use the alto. We're now moving on to the other class in band, which is our brass and percussion class. Now, brass and percussion are two separate families of instruments, but we put them together for class time. We're going to start with trumpet, which is the highest sounding brass instrument. Trumpet is sometimes also called cornet, so if you have a cornet at home, that is perfectly fine to use. This is the trumpet. Next is the trombone. This is the first of our 2 low brass instruments, and this is, it changes notes with the slide, so that's kind of fun for our 5th graders. And our next low brass instrument is called the euphonium. Just like the trumpet, it can have a second name, so it might also go by baritone. That's also fine to use. This is the euphonium. One important note about the euphonium is that just like the double bass, it's a little too big to take on the bus, so the euphonium that you provide for your student will be kept at home, and then we will provide one for your student to keep at school, so you don't have to worry about transferring that back and forth as it's pretty heavy. Next, we have the percussion, and percussionists in 5th grade will play 2 instruments. One is the bells, and the second is the snare drum. You'll hear that bells play tunes and melodies, things we can sing along to, and then a snare drum plays a rhythm. We'll start with bells. While we switch over to snare drum, I'll say this might sound a little loud, but each of our percussion kits also come with a practice pad, which you can see in the pictures at the bottom of the black case. So that's a lot quieter for practicing at home. The case rolls and it is able to go on the bus. Before we move on, I would like to give one huge thank you to all of the Troy High students for being here tonight. Thank you so much. All 5th graders in Troy schools get the opportunity to participate in instrumental music. This is quite the opportunity that not a lot of other students in our area get to partake in, so we are so lucky to have this here in our district. They get to choose a band or an orchestra instrument, and our classes meet all school year long. We're meeting right now, going over pitch and rhythm lessons, and then by the end of September, the week of September 26th, we will start with instruments in our hand, beginning band and orchestra classes, and I think I'm more excited than the fifth graders. It's always one of the best weeks of the year. We have class 2 days of the week, and that will be the same 2 days every week. So say your student goes to BMIS, and their schedule is Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, they will always have band and orchestra Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. There's no rotation days like some of our other specials go through. In the packet that we will look at the end of the presentation here tonight, you'll see your student's schedule, so you'll know when they need to have their instrument at school. All other days it can just be kept at home for practicing. We split into 3 different classes. So depending on the instrument your student selects, that's the class they'll be in. They will either be in orchestra class if they pick a string instrument, woodwind class if they pick a woodwind instrument, or the brass class if they pick brass or percussion. As I said earlier, those are 2 different types of instruments, but we do put them together. Next, we'll be talking about how to choose an instrument.
So right now, this week and next week and last week, in the 5th grade instrumental music classes, we're working on kids selecting their instruments. So your student might have already brought home to you a yellow form. If not, that will be happening soon. And basically, we started out by showing them the instrument choices, kind of like we did just now. We talked about how they worked, and then we had them choose a few instruments to try. So again, tryouts may have already happened, or they may be coming up depending on which school your 5th grader goes to. So they get to try out at least one instrument from each category, find out what works best for them, what they enjoy the most, and that is really the most important thing about choosing an instrument. You want it to be something that the student enjoys, because that's going to give them the drive to keep working on it, and any instrument is going to take work, but you'll have the most success if you're enjoying it. So the instrument fitting process, we do take into account some physical things like if you have a smaller hand size, saxophone might be difficult for you. If you have braces, you might want to consult with your dentist before trying a brass instrument, but we pretty much can accommodate everybody with some way to play some instruments. Final decisions are to be made by you guys. So you can look at that yellow form with your kid, talk about what they're interested in, and make the final decision and send that form back to us. And then we've still got 2 weeks to make final decisions should be made in the next week, but then you still have a week after that to obtain an instrument before we actually need to start, September 25th. So, talking of obtaining an instrument, there are lots of places you can go to get an instrument. Some of them are better than others. The number one thing we would recommend is a rental package from one of the local music stores, and there's a few reasons for that. One is they already have our supplies list, so they will include everything. Another is they usually have a repair and insurance plan, so if something happens to the instrument, they'll repair it for free. And then also, they usually allow you to build equity with your rental payments. So if you're thinking of this as maybe a long-term thing, like you saw those amazing demonstrations, if you want to keep going beyond 5th grade and you want to end up owning an instrument, they will apply your monthly payments towards an eventual purchase. And this is also great for string players, because if you're starting with a small size instrument and then you're getting bigger, you just trade it in, no problem. If you were to choose to purchase an instrument, again, we would recommend a local music dealer. We would not recommend going for the cheapest option you can find on the internet. If you can find, like, some $50 purple violin with white gloves, that's probably not a good choice. They make them very cheaply. They're kind of like toys. They might be so badly put together that they have rough edges that injure students' fingers. We had that last year. They might fall apart very soon after you start using them. So we really recommend getting a quality instrument. It makes a big difference. We also have a used instrument sale coming up next Saturday, It'll be here at Athens High School, and that's supporting one of our nonprofit programs for supporting students with special needs with music. So Proceeds will help with that, and it's a great place to pick up a quality instrument at a cheap price. And then you can also borrow instruments, and you can also talk to us. We have some ability to help you out with that if you need.
One quick note about getting string instruments is to double check that you get the correct size. So we're going through a process where we let students try the instruments they're interested in, and at that point we will determine what the best size for your student is, and it's really important that we stick to that size. So on the form that goes home, the yellow instrument choice form, it will indicate the size your child would need if they choose that instrument. If you have an instrument at home that's a half size and your child's been sized for a 3/4, we could double check it to see if it would work, but it is important that they have the right size. So this is a kind of a big decision for fifth graders. We ask that they think really carefully, and one of the reasons that we give students a chance to try instruments is to figure out what comes more naturally to them, what they enjoy playing, so they make a good decision for the year, because we need students to stick with this instrument for the whole year. So we want to think really carefully about what we choose, because when we have students switching instruments throughout the year, it really is disruptive to everybody's experience. So they want to choose carefully, commit to sticking with something for the whole year. A lot of times in the first few weeks, students will say, I don't know if it sounds good. It won't sound good. They're just starting out. So you've got to give it a little bit of time. But that's also one of the reasons it's so important that we take some time at school and give them a chance to try them out. Students should be prepared for class. They need to bring their instrument, their iPad and pencil. Usually we require them to bring also, so we've got to make sure iPads are charged. And they will need to bring any accessories with their instrument every single time, and they will have a music book they need to bring. So it's really important that your student is bringing those things to every class. Really, students who repeatedly forget their instruments, it's really hard for them to keep up, and it's just not very fun. So anything you can do to support your student remembering, hey, I have band and orchestra on Tuesdays and Fridays, or whatever it is, it's really meaningful to give them that opportunity to help them by making sure they have all their materials for every class. We have winter and spring performances. There is a winter 5th grade band and orchestra concert. There is also, in the spring, Festival of Orchestras and Showcase of Bands, where we involve some of the middle and high school students in that performance. It's super exciting. And we will do an assembly at the end of the year where the 5th graders get to show off what they've learned all year in instrumental music and vocal music to the rest of their school. That's a students only performance, but it's a really exciting opportunity for them. If you have a child playing baritone or bass, we said that instrument does not regularly come to school for classes, but you will need to make sure that they bring their instrument from home to the concerts. We do expect that everyone plan ahead. We'll send out the concert dates in a few weeks as we get everything started. First concert's not until January or February, depending on your child's school. So please try to plan ahead for that so that everyone is there. It does make a difference to have everyone attend, and the students work really hard to prepare for those performances. The lesson books are called Sound Innovations Book 1 for band. So you want to make sure that it says the correct instrument in the top, I think it's the top corner or somewhere on the cover. For orchestra, it's Essential Elements Book 1, and it needs to say the correct instrument name. Be careful with violin and viola. They look really similar. Sometimes when you go to a music store, they may accidentally give you the wrong one because they look a lot alike. So double check that it says the correct instrument. And the Essential Elements book, there's an older version. So just make sure if you go to a music store that you ask for the most updated version. You don't want the red version. You need a new version that has access to the online program. There's a special access code that you'll need. And each instrument has a list of supplies. This is really important that you double check. If you're getting an instrument from a vendor, they should already have our list of supplies. We made sure that every local vendor has it. But it's good to double check because they've got many, many people coming in handling instrument rentals. Just double check the supply list, make sure they didn't pass anything over. And that list is going to be in a whole packet of information we're going to give you at the end of this presentation. All right, so we have some frequently asked questions. Are classes held during the regular school day? Yes, this is something that all fifth graders participate in. It's part of the specials rotation. It's in their regular schedule. So it's never anything outside of school except for those winter and spring concerts. Do classes meet all year long? Yes. We don't start bringing instruments for a couple weeks, but we're already meeting with them, like Mrs. Millette said. We're giving them a chance to try instruments. We're counseling them through the instrument trial process. We're learning a lot about rhythm and pitch, so we're prepared when we get those instruments in school in a couple of weeks. My student takes piano lessons. Which instrument should they choose? If your student takes piano or any other lessons, that will set them up for great success in band or orchestra. Piano is sort of a solitary instrument. It's not something that we have in band or orchestra classes traditionally, but it makes it really easy to pick up other instruments, especially with the focus on music reading skills that people often have in piano lessons. The percussion is most similar to piano in that the bells are similar to piano, but really we find that piano students are successful in any instrument that they choose. Can my student choose to take instrumental music in middle and high school? We so encourage you to continue, or at least just try it again for 6th grade. We have really excellent band and orchestra programs here at Troy. It's a special opportunity. It's a great social opportunity as well to meet with some students that you might not ever have had a chance to have class with or do things with before. Even at our summer camp, we found some flute students who are in different homerooms in 5th grade who have become best friends because they were in band together in 5th grade. So really encourage you as the year goes on to be thinking ahead about middle school. We'll talk to you about middle school electives in the winter and spring as well. I want to make a quick note about students who already play, for example, violin. Violin's a pretty common one that students will already have taken lessons with before 5th grade. So if your child already plays, for example, the violin, they have a few options. They can certainly play the violin in school and have a great experience. For students who are more advanced, string instrument players especially, we'll sometimes give them extra special tunes that they can learn on their own that are more challenging. A lot of times our violinists will try a different string instrument and find that they really excel at that. Maybe they'll keep playing violin outside of school and play something different at school. Or we've had students who play in youth orchestra and then played the trumpet at school just to get a different experience. So consider those options if your child already plays one of these instruments, if they want to continue or if they want to try something a little different. Is there homework for band and orchestra? Yeah, it's to practice. We don't often have assignments that they need to do. Every once in a while, we'll ask them to record themselves playing a video or something like that so we can get a little bit more individual help and skill development, but mostly they could really use some help remembering to practice. Make that a routine, put it into your schedule. Start with 3 times a week, 10 or 15 minutes, especially at the beginning. They don't know a lot. Play everything you played in class this week, do it once, done. We usually find that it's just making sure they get the instrument out, and once it's out, we really like playing our instruments, so it's easy, but it's getting that to fit into your busy schedule is something your 5th grader could really use some help with. So consider setting aside 3 times per week for about 15 minutes, probably 20 minutes as they know more, where they are practicing regularly, and they're going to enjoy this more, and they're going to be really successful and excited about what they can do. It's amazing how much they grow just by playing in class, so think about how much more they grow when they also play at home. When are the performances? It depends on the school. We usually group 3 elementary schools together. So end of January, beginning of February are the winter concert dates. And then end of April, beginning of May are the spring concert dates. We will send those out in a few weeks after classes have gotten started. So Mrs. Millette and Mr. Weiss, will you come back up here? Did you guys have any other FAQs to add? Okay. So we want to show you This is your gold mine of information about fifth grade band and orchestra. So if you can, and you want to, you can check this out using the QR code. We will also email this out tomorrow, but if you want to get a little head look at it, you can look at it right now. And this will have class times. This will have a list of places to go find instruments. This will have the whole complete list of things you need with your instruments and accessories. Pretty much every question that you have is probably answered in this packet somewhere. It also will have our contact information. You are welcome to email one or any of us with any question. If you send something to me and I can't answer it, I will consult with my colleagues and we'll find a solution for you. So take this if you want to look at it, but know that it will go to everyone's email tomorrow. And if you want to review anything that we talked about today, you will also be able to do that because we're going to send out a link to everybody of a recording of this orientation. I also want to point out, and I'll put this back up at the end, that we have an Instagram page. Mrs. Millette manages our Instagram page. It's awesome. So you might check it. If you're on Instagram, you might see pictures of instrument fittings this week. You might see pictures of us demonstrating the instruments, kind of like what the high schoolers did for you tonight, for the fifth graders earlier this year. So it's really fun, and you can kind of get some reminders of concert dates or just get to see what's going on in fifth grade instrumental music. I have some really important special thanks. So we already thanked the students from Troy High School who came and played for us, but their instrumental music teachers were really, yeah, you want to introduce?
Yes. I just wanted, there are some teachers that showed up here tonight to help out, and if you have any questions and wanted to meet who that middle school teacher is, a lot of them are here today, and the high school teachers. So just going around the room when I say, Dr. Cephas is here from Baker working with the band. His wife, Mrs. Cephas, is also the orchestra teacher there, so he's over here. We have over here Mr. Torres is the Smith band director over there. Thank you very much. Next to him is Mrs. Murphy, who is our orchestra teacher at both Smith and at Larson. Standing a little bit more out of the light over there, that's Mr. Holt. He is our newest member of the team. He is the band director at Larson Middle School. The woman here that's walking across right here, that's Mrs. Stewart. She is at Troy High School working with the orchestras. And I know that Mr. Nutting and Mr. Greenwood from Troy High were here. They're standing around somewhere in black shirts. And Mr. Cable, who is the band director here at Athens High School and helping host us, he is also here in a red shirt somewhere around. But I just wanted to personally say thank you to all of them for coming out. If you have questions about those programs or something about band in general, we all know how fifth grade works. So if they're too busy with these three, come and talk to us also. Thank you very much.
So on my list of special thanks is this guy right here. This is Joe Havrilla, who's our instrumental music coordinator. He provides a lot of support for all of us. Thank you, Joe, and thank you for being here to help us out. So the Troy High secondary instrumental music teachers, they helped coordinate getting our excellent high schoolers here. Another round of applause for them and for the Troy High musicians who played for you. Thank you. We know our high schoolers are really busy, so we appreciate them. Gino Manchella, right over here, theater manager. Thank you, Gino, for making everything run. Notable Youth Ensemble is the nonprofit that Mr. Weiss mentioned before that helps with the used instrument sale and helps our special needs students with special programming outside of school hours. And we also want to give a special thanks to Marshall Music. Marshall Music they are still sending in teams every day to help your child have a chance to try all of the instruments. I think they send 7 people a day. We go to 2 schools a day for a couple of hours. It's a big operation, and Marshall pays all of those employees to be there. So we really, really appreciate their support in that. All right, so let's do it this way. Most of your questions are going to be answered in that packet, but if you want to talk to us about anything specific, if you are a Troy band person, well, you kind of make your way in that direction. So if you have band-specific questions, you can go in that side. If you have orchestra-specific questions, come over here. Orchestra teachers will meet over here and help whoever has questions. And if you have general questions, just go to wherever. Otherwise, I'm going to release you. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for taking the time to come out.